Rorschach's journal. Industrial Dockland area. Another cesspit off beaten track. Like others, home to depraved filth.
Remember how I said in the last level I appreciated there was a reason they didn't park closer to their destination? Well, in this level there is no reason for that. They just parked a really long, healthy jog away from the amusement park for no discernible reason whatsoever. This level feels a bit strange compared to the others in that you don't really do anything too important to the story inside the level itself, and the level is easily the longest in the game. The other levels being 10 to 15 minutes, this one being 20 to 30. Watchmen: The End Is Nigh as a whole is about 90 minutes long, maybe slightly over that. And to reach that 90-minute mark, they clearly padded this level a bit. But it's not too noticeable, it's just like, oh hey, this level is a bit longer than the last one, huh? And then it goes back to the normal level length for the rest of the game. So as for the level itself, this level is the first time it's noticeable where the enemy characters will start to interrupt your attacks frequently if you don't do the combos properly. The rule from before is still in effect though. If you pull off a successful combo, the enemy will not interrupt you, but if you flub it, they will interrupt you. They just interrupt you more frequently in this level than previous ones. The skinny enemies in particular, if you flub a combo and use a heavy attack on the skinny enemies, are almost 100% guaranteed to interrupt your attack. This is also around the point where the enemies stop getting grabbed unless you stun them first, which makes the grab kind of useless. Overall, it's not an awful level. The enemy competence noticeably goes up if you're playing the game as a normal person. But if you're familiar with the game mechanics or are simply really good at picking the right combo for the right situation and never messing up your combos, you're probably not even going to notice the difference in enemy types. Like, you might not even notice they're more competent if you just get all your combos right all the time and never get hit from behind. Notably, this is the last inclusion of the large enemy types. They don't appear at all after this level, which I think is fair. There's not much more the large enemy types can do after this level. They don't interrupt your attacks as frequently. They're basically just bullet sponges, but for your fists. A maximum damage combo will take out a skinny enemy 100% consistently, but will not take out a large enemy 100% consistently. There are some minor variations in the enemy types I already mentioned, but all of the tactics basically just come down to, hey, make sure you use combos properly. If you're using combos properly, there's really absolutely nothing to worry about in terms of enemy types. I definitely think this is the weakest level in the game, and maybe the game would have been better if it stopped at 5 chapters, maybe excluded this chapter entirely. But then we wouldn't get the fat enemies for anything beyond 1 level, which would make their inclusion seem downright bizarre if they only appear in the 1 level. At least they appear in 2 levels with the game's current pacing. Now that we've discussed the game design itself, let's talk about Watchmen. So, it's obvious that the people behind this game read the Watchmen comic books and based the characterizations off the comic books instead of the film, while still trying to keep it reasonably faithful to the film for licensing purposes. But I really wish there were some kind of video game or film media that was more accurate to the comics. I understand that's hard because the comics are really messed up and it's hard to sell that to normal audiences, but it's just sort of a big leap down a pit, the difference between the film and the comics. The leap is less large from the video game to the comics, but it's still quite noticeable. The comics are so much more intense. The sequel to this game is actually the closest any non-comic media gets to mimicking the tone of the comics accurately, but even then, it's still not exactly there. It's pretty close, though. They did a good job, considering they still had to try and sell the game to relatively normal people. The thing about this game, though, is that, like, if you're a fan of the Watchmen comics, this game is cool and everything, but the story is not amazing or like, something you need to experience. But the sequel to this game, I would say if you're a fan of the comics, you should absolutely experience the story of the second game. The problem is the second game is ass. So if they could take the gameplay of the first game and transplant it into the second game, that would be great. It's not like they use a different combat engine for the second game or anything, it's just worse for so many reasons. And I'm sure that really wasn't the developer's fault, because based on the first game, I know they know how to make a good beat-em-up. But the second game reuses so many assets and pads itself so much that it's absolutely awful as a video game. But as a story, it's great. It would just be cool if it could be both, a good video game and a good story. That reminds me that this game and its sequel got bundled together for a physical release on the PS3. Which is good. It's good that this game got a physical release because, you know, what if someday it gets removed from digital stores? That would suck. It was a digital-only game for a bit. But at the same time, I can't imagine too many people bought the collected versions physically. I don't know how well this game and its sequel sold, but I don't feel like it would have sold well enough for a physical release. As of right now, the game is still available on Steam, and so is its sequel. So that's good. Usually licensed games get removed by now. But it's been 10 years, and the game's still on Steam. So, you know, I think it's going to be there for a while, until inevitably someone remembers it's there and takes it down. But, yeah, you can, as of right now, you can still buy it on Steam. But even if you couldn't, at least there is that physical release I just mentioned. It's nice that more and more games are getting physical releases because the cost of producing physically released games is getting significantly less. Even if your game can't get a full physical release, there's always limited run games, and they will publish anything on a disc, alright? Revenant Saga is on a PS4 disc right now. And I don't mean that as a knock against Revenant Saga, okay? Revenant Saga looks okay to me. But if you look it up, it's not the kind of game you would expect to be released on a PS4 disc, is all I'm saying. Maybe a phone game, maybe a Steam game, not the kind of thing you'd expect to get a physical release on the PS4. Sorry, my health, I was getting wrecked because I was really obsessed with throwing that guy into the water. I am so tired of the heat. I'm gonna keep complaining about it until it goes away, which could be a problem because it just now turned spring. Rorschach, I had that guy. That was mine. That was mine. And you stole it from me. There's so many levers in this game that need to be pulled simultaneously. It's a little absurd. Just a suggestion, Night Owl, but maybe next time landing, you know, like right next to the amusement park would be better. Instead of, you know, so far away. Because, oh my god. I have been a little hesitant to record commentary over this level, which I shouldn't have been, because clearly I have plenty of things to talk about, but mostly I think I was hesitant because the accompanying level in Kick-Ass is... let's just say it shows why Kick-Ass outstays its welcome. This level, as was previously said, it's like, oh hey, this level's a bit longer than the last one, that's kind of weird, but the next Kick-Ass level, it's a little, you don't want to play it. Now, I'm not saying that instead of recording Watchmen and Kick-Ass, I was playing Fairy Fencer F all weekend because I really didn't want to talk over this next level in Kick-Ass, but if I was playing Fairy Fencer F all weekend, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good game. Very positively surprised by the quality of writing, the combat simplistic upgrade system, how approachable everything is. I really like the characters a whole lot also. There's a good mix of the characters feeling human and genuinely teasing each other, and the story and motivation still being taken seriously. Shows that Compile Heart can actually write a serious story with characters that have actual character development when they put their mind to it. And I'm not saying that I spent the weekend learning those things about the game instead of playing and recording Watchmen and Kick-Ass. But if I did, that's what I would have taken away from the experience. I did get my brother to start reading Watchmen, the collection of all of the Watchmen comics, not just like the first issue or anything like that. I think it's called Absolute Watchmen is what the collection is called. But I did get my brother to start reading Watchmen. because I made him play the game with me and watch me play the sequel, because nobody should be forced to play the sequel. And he was impressed with how messed up it was, so he really wanted to experience the original. Really wanted to see how messed up the original could get if the sequel was that messed up, narratively, I mean. And I don't think he's been disappointed so far. I will admit, Watchmen, a lot crazier than I remember. Thought maybe I was exaggerating the amount of intensity in the Watchmen comics before, but no, it's pretty fucked up. It's also a complete story that people have done very little fucking with, thankfully. Like, the story's over. The Watchmen comics, they told a story and they're done. That's it, you know? And very few people have fucked with it, trying to capitalize on it. I mean, the movie is an obvious attempt to capitalize on it, but it's not like that movie went anywhere. I think the world could do with more comics and media like Watchmen. Not the Watchmen film, but the Watchmen comics specifically, and the End Is Nigh sequel specifically, because it's important to show people characters that are characters, that have deeply ingrained psychological issues, and suffer from a lot of delusions of grandeur and other various personality disorders. Blinded by patriotism, driven mad by violence, discomfort with sex, just generally not good or bad people, just messed up, broken people, some of which, you know, probably need put out of their misery. Sort of like Ratchet & Clank Deadlocked, but Watchmen is not rated teen, it's rated Super M for things that you shouldn't show your family. I think people get a little too obsessed about what fictional characters come off as, like what they're teaching people, or how relatable they are, or this and that, and what kind of influence they could have. You're adults, right? It's adult media. What you need is characters that are actual people, not characters that suit your agenda. It'll help you understand people a lot better if, you know, you have actual characters in your media instead of just straw men. It gets immensely frustrating trying to discuss media with someone and they're like, oh man, this character is absolutely horrible and people that consume this media are horrible as a result. And I'm like, well, the character is horrible, but that's the point. You're not supposed to like what the character does. You can like the character because they're well written as a bad or messed up person, but you don't have to like them as a person for them to be a good character. Being a good character and being a good person are entirely independent of each other. I don't know, this is just veering into personal wish list territory now. I'm perfectly fine with people being more sensitive. Like being more sensitive to social inclusion, being more sensitive to conversation with other people, generally being more considerate and empathetic. That's fine. I'm perfectly fine that society is going in that direction. That's a good thing, I think, but maybe people should not try and carry that over into their fictional media so much. Maybe let fictional media be a place to express the things that people can't express in, you know, regular conversation and stuff. I got lost up here, but there's no reason for that because they put a giant arrow telling me where to go, and my dumbass still didn't see it. I just feel like, you know, if you're making fictional media, you should be allowed to be an ass there. That should be the one place where you're always allowed to be an ass, or write your characters or story however you like. Because that's the one place where it does not directly hurt people. It's the closest you can have to venting those feelings without causing pain. And even if it weren't, I just don't like the idea of limiting people's creativity. Hold on, Rorschach, I'm coming. Give me a minute.
Good to see you
Just
again.
chill out. Stop jittering around like that.
This path must lead to the park entrance. Jimmy the Gimmick has got to be around here somewhere, and by now he's probably expecting us.
park entrance. Unfortunately for the gimmick, fun and games end now.
You're out of places to run, Jimmy. And you're starting to piss us off.
Quit while you can still walk.
Forget it, Faceless. There's always a way out.
Only way out of here is pavement.
Shit! Look! Wait, let's be reasonable. Hey, what the...
I can't hold this forever, Jimmy. If you're gonna talk, it better be now.
Okay, sure, whatever you want.
Where can we find Underboss?
Where else? Back in his old underground hideout.
Thought that property been auctioned off with the rest of his assets.
Well, whoever bought it must be letting him use it, because that's where I was told to deliver the hardware.
What hardware? Who told you that? I don't get it. That cable was designed to hold 5 times that much weight. There's no way it should have snapped on its own. Something or somebody must have cut it.
Paranoid. Still alive. For now.
Let's call for an ambulance to pick up what's left of Jimmy.
Any other ideas how to reach Underboss?
Let's take the sewers. They're his domain.
Appropriate.
A few days after, Marcus found out about Mindy's latest feats before we could meet up with Dr. Gravity's pals. He forced her to fulfill the promise she'd made to him. No more superheroes. But me? I couldn't believe my eyes. Those guys had a headquarters like the Avengers or the Justice League. I already knew Dr. Gravity. They introduced me Night Bitch, the girl who became a masked vigilante when somebody murdered her sister. Remember Tommy were the parents of a kid who was kidnapped years ago, and Insect Man, who had been fucked over all his life because he was gay. And Battle Guy turned out to be my buddy Marty Eisenberg. The stupid jerk had made up a story about his parents being murdered in order to join the group. Although that didn't seem to matter to the leader. Colonel Stars and Stripes, former mafia hitman, and born-again Christian, and the coolest fucking guy I've ever met.
Kick-ass. It would be a great honor if you join us.
Yeah, sign me up.
Kick-ass. Our objective tonight is Jimmy Kim, alias Genghis Carnage.
Genghis Carnage? Lately, the bad guys sure are going for simplistic racial stereotypes.
Well, anyway, Carnage runs one of those Chinese triad's biggest prostitution rings.
What bastards!
They've got a brothel in Chinatown. Today we'll pay Mr. Carnage a visit to try and reason with him and convince him to give up such bad business practices. We'll meet up at the brothel. Justice forever. Kick-ass. Our objective tonight is Jimmy Kim, alias Genghis Carnage.
Genghis Carnage? Lately, the bad guys sure are going for simplistic racial stereotypes.
Well, anyway, Carnage runs one of those Chinese triad's biggest prostitution rings.
What bastards!
They've got a brothel in Chinatown. Today we'll pay Mr. Carnage a visit to try and reason with him and convince him to give up such bad business practices. We'll meet up at the brothel. Justice forever.
I really like the Colonel's voice acting tone. Like, he has the perfect cadence to play this old born-again Christian guy. This Mr. Perfect character. I'm not saying the voice acting for him itself is good, but I'm saying he got the right tone down. Like, he understood the character and what the character was supposed to sound like. The amount of popping in this game is not acceptable. So, in this level, they introduce enemies with guns, and you want to target the enemies with guns first because you don't want to get shot. The enemies with guns are easily the most dangerous enemy in the game, by far. And you cannot counter bullets. You can counter every other attack in this game, but you can't counter bullets, dummy. The only way to avoid bullets is to roll. So, from this level onward, whenever you see a group of enemies, you want to check it for anyone with a gun, and take out the guy with the gun first. But I really don't think a game like this should have pop-in. The graphics are nice looking. I really like the visual style, and the environments are pretty. A friend of mine, Bayou Enchanted, pointed out that they use the exaggerated cartoonish features to great effect with the large enemies by giving them giant hands. You know, which makes sense because their proportions are cartoonish. so they're allowed to have larger hands and be sort of wackier caricatures of real people. I like that. But, I mean, as nice as the game looks, there's no denying that it's very simplistic. You know, it's not, like, the highest detailed shit. So, I don't think it should be popping in the way it does. Now, unfortunately for Kick-Ass 2, God, I don't remember Kick-Ass being that strong. Unfortunately for Kick-Ass 2, this is the level where you start to realize that the game does not have enough to say to warrant the length of the levels. Not only is there a lack of interesting development during this level, but on top of that, this level is like fucking 40 minutes long. And unlike its corresponding level in Watchmen, this is not a one-time deal with Kick-Ass 2. Every level from this point onward is 40 minutes to an hour long, which is, oh my god. If this game were 90 minutes long, like Watchmen The End Is Nigh, then it still wouldn't be very good, but it would certainly be more acceptable, and it would be a decent beat-em-up curiosity. But at the length it is now, 3 to 4 hours, I really don't think that's okay. Some people might think that 90 minutes is too short for a game, like maybe Watchmen The End Is Nigh should be longer. Those people are wrong, because I've played Watchmen many times over.
It must be a big responsibility to be the leader of Justice Forever, huh, Colonel?
Well, I'm used to it. I ran bigger groups when I was a hitman for the D'Amico family.
A hitman from the Shit. How'd you go from that to being a superhero?
I met somebody who came from beyond the heavens, died for us, and rose again to save us.
You met Son Goku? Okay, I was just kidding. We're talking about Jesus Christ, of course.
Now, before you go getting mad at Kick-Ass, I wanna say I have made that joke Kick-Ass just made more than once in my life. More than one time. Alright? So I think it's funny. Anyway, the thing about games is that, like, if your game is short but satisfying, people are gonna want to replay it over and over. I've replayed Watchmen so many times that I have over 12 hours of playtime on it, even though it's only 90 minutes long. But Kick-Ass drags on so long and has so much deliberate, insulting padding that it's just like, you don't want to play it anymore after it's over. Because it didn't leave you wanting more, it didn't even leave you satisfied, it left you overstuffed. You were ready for it to be over, well before it was actually over. You try and tell the game, hey, it's time to stop, I don't want to play anymore, and it doesn't listen. It keeps going. I mean, of course you could always just stop playing, but what kind of pussy just stops playing a game right in the middle of it? You gotta see the ending. I'm making fun of myself, not you. One of my closest friends constantly makes fun of me for always going until I see the ending of the game, no matter what. And they frequently bring up, you know, I could stop playing before the ending, but I'm not gonna do that. That man seems to have some problems. I think people really need to be more relaxed about graphical glitches like that. I mean, yeah, they look funny, but you should consider that a bonus in any 3D game with physics. That's gonna happen sometime. You know, that's just gonna happen. You have to accept that. I mean, let's not go around pretending The Witcher 3 doesn't have a ton of graphical bugs, alright? Or a ton of other game-breaking bugs that aren't so much graphical. Like, maybe you want to knock over 6 people with the spell that knocks people over, but instead the game makes a really loud noise and crashes. And maybe your hit detection is so bad that Kick-Ass 2's hit detection is great by comparison. You know, not every game can be perfect. You know, sometimes you goof up. Witcher 3.
All right! Free Wi-Fi!
fuck?
Game's over, Carnage!
Who the fuck are you?
I'm the good guy.
You're the dead guy. That's why I'm going to butcher your guts.
Really? First Black Death was going to give us a Black Death, and now Carnage wants to butcher us. Any of you nutcases called Lady BJ? Because I'm just dying to beat on her.
Oh, you son of a bitch. I am gonna rip out your fucking gut and stir fire.
Yeah!
Where are the girls, Carnage? Screw you, you fucking Lone Ranger. Ike? You see, it wasn't so hard to talk.
You'll be sorry for this. Motherfucker. I will take care of you.
Motherfucker?
You might be the guy Black Death told us about. The one who wanted to be the first supervillain.
Forget about it. I'm not gonna say that name. Let's go. We have plenty to do besides battling evil. Being a superhero means helping people.
And he was right. A lot of the time there wasn't much action. Most nights we worked as volunteers at soup kitchens, or we helped distribute missing people posters. That's what being a group of superheroes was. We were justice forever.